Greetings, scholars, and welcome back. This is like take 5 for this video because it won't save. So I'm going to simultaneously try to make it as short as possible, but also not forget to say something because I've already said everything 5 times in 2 days. All right. Basically, we're doing a little bit of either an intro or a refresh to rhetoric. LEPO, I throw that acronym around all the time, so I guess this is my welcome to understanding my random acronyms. It's not that random. We're in an English class, but LEPO, L-E-P-O, stands for Logos, Ethos, Pathos, other forms of rhetoric, and I'm going to expand that definition of rhetoric as the art of persuasion to more of just understanding effective communication. I suppose you're persuading people to think you're a nice, clever person who knows what they're talking about and whatever you're trying to communicate. Or if you're trying to apologize, that you're actually very sorry. Or if you're trying to share a nugget of wisdom, that you really do know those things. So, Logos, I'm just going to basically skip over in 10 seconds here to say that that is basically logic. That's where we're sitting with your logical approaches, data, information, cited source material. So basically that's your logical steps of structure and your actual fact-based information. That's clearly very important, but I feel like for now that's fairly self-explanatory. Ethos, on the other hand, people say that, it looks like ethos, ethics, I think they probably come from the same Greek root, but ethos is authority, credibility. So what makes you able to say whatever it is you're saying? What makes you have the authority or have the credibility for people to trust or believe you when you're trying to communicate with them? So we are going to look at ethos and pathos today because, and I also say pathos, don't feel weird if you hear them pronounced 2 different ways. Pathos is kind of where we get the word pathetic from, again, same Greek root, but that's just emotion. Emotion is kind of that way that we engage and connect with people. But if we feel like our emotions are being played with, we get really defensive and we shut down. So emotion is a very powerful tool to communicate and engage with people, but it can also go dangerously, terribly wrong. So let us just dive into this ethos and pathos and how they get used, because you're either analyzing other information or you're trying to craft your communication and information, and it's good to understand what these things are and how they work. All right. Just kidding. Arrows. All right. Review. No, who cares? Okay. Here. I don't think these are that popular anymore, but then again, I don't have basic television. Haven't for years, so maybe these are on channels all the time. That basic ASPCA, Save the Puppies, Pounds, Humane Society, starving children, famines, wars, all of these like very tragic things that people are trying to support for charities. This is one approach to asking for it, is if this situation upsets you, call the number on your screen now and give us your credit card. I think everybody is upset by starving orphans anywhere. So of course everybody cares. But why is this actually a very ineffective way to get people to donate to a charity? It's all pathos. It is all, that image is very sad. If you watch those 30-second commercials, it's like, in the arms of the angels, and there's like little puppies in cages, or there's crying children, and you're just like, In England, there was the one with the donkeys, the overworked donkeys, and you're just like, let the donkey rest. Okay, they're horrible because they are way too pathos heavy. They're upsetting. So instead of being like, yes, let's talk about this issue in 27 seconds, you get up and go get a soda, or you put the television on mute, or you mess with your phone, or you do something else. You disengage because you feel like your emotions have been attacked. The other side is call this number and give them your credit card like I was not born yesterday. You don't know who they are. Stranger danger, right? Trust. So they're lacking ethos. They're lacking credibility. They're lacking trust. You don't know who these people are. Scammers are out there, which means that we all need to like be far more persuaded into trusting someone than perhaps yester generation, but probably not. Let's be honest. There have been predators for thousands of years. How can they then do that? Well, here we've got a quick ethos example. Familiar face, Angelina Jolie. She is I forgot which organization, but she's a humanitarian. She works for a lot of humanitarian organizations all over the world. And if she lends her face and her name to something, she's basically putting her reputation on the line with that. And then you've got somebody going like, hey, if she trusts them, maybe I'll trust them too. That's ethos. So celebrity endorsements are quick, dirty ethos. I mean, not dirty, but you know what I mean. You can get that ethos message across. You gain trust, or at least more trust for an organization when they've got sort of a recognizable name or familiar face. That's instant ethos. So yes, the pathos is still there, but now all of a sudden we trust the people on the other end aren't like somebody in their mom's basement trying to steal my identity. All right, so the print scam. This is another one of those. Too much pathos, right? Like, oh no, I'm in trouble and in a foreign country. Please help. That we care, but also I don't know you, and you know there's a lot of bad people out there. So the Nigerian print scam is all pathos, no ethos, and of course it is a scam. So you know, there is no ethos to be had. Like there's nothing that they can do to be like, trust me, no, we're credible. They're not credible. That's the point of it being a scam. So now you can see the danger of too much pathos without enough ethos. Same thing can happen in your basic communications. If you haven't established why we should listen to you, we're not going to hear what you're trying to say. So key is balance. Most of the time you've got your logos, your logic, your data, your facts, and then how you present them is both the cocktail chord of how much ethos and pathos you throw in there, but also your arrangement of it. Most successful arguments usually have a well-established ethos and then a wee little sprinkling of the strong spice of pathos. Get that emotional engagement. Remember also, making you cry or making you like worried or scared is not the only kind of pathos. All the emotions. Another one that advertisements do is make you laugh, right? Like look at the Super Bowl commercials. Most of the time they make you laugh, right? They are usually a 2-note chord of like a lot of pathos in the funny, and then celebrity endorsements with the ethos, right? So yes, establish it. Okay, here I've got a great one for like how to establish your ethos in a research paper. Frederick Douglass, look him up if you don't know that name already. Great man. So we've got 2 paragraphs here where he talks about the issues of slavery, and this is pre the Civil War. All right, so he's talking about how just knowledge is kept from slaves, and he does some really incredible things here. I'm not going to read it out to you because you can read it while I'm mam-and-amming, or you can pause it and read it, but let me just point to his establishing of ethos. He gives a personal moment of, I have no accurate knowledge of my age. Boom. So he's got like firsthand experience. He is speaking from a place of, he was a slave who then came to the North. All right, so by far the larger part of slaves know as little of their ages as horses know theirs. That is now telling you kind of a generalization, but notice how he didn't use an absolute. He didn't say all slaves. There's never been a slave who's known their birthday. Same where he says most masters within my knowledge, as opposed to like every master does the X thing. Because when you speak in absolutes, all we have to do is find one exception, and then you're wrong. So you're wrong. When you speak in these sort of hedged boundaries, you're adding credibility. We trust that you don't just like talk out of your anything other than anyway. You don't just talk out of nowhere. You hedge it. You say, here's as far as I can know, and here's where my boundaries are. Like, I can't really speak past this point. I don't really know what happens outside of North Dakota, or I don't really know what happens in. When you add those, it's not making you look like you're ignorant. It's making you look like you're careful. If you are only speaking within a particular boundary, then we know that you are certain of what you're saying, and that makes us trust your credibility more. So instead of using absolutes about always, never, all, none, he gives us within my knowledge and most and the larger part. He also gives us some of this eyewitness journalistic knowledge experience of, I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell of his birthday. It means that he paid attention to this topic and he's talked to other people. It's not just that he doesn't, but rather he's kind of made a study of it, right? So then that means like, okay, like he knows stuff about this. The final thing that he does to build ethos here is he uses the language. He uses the terminology. So you got to talk like you've read a lot or talked a lot or you understand X thing that you're trying to comment on. So here he talks about how slaves talk about their birth zone, cherry time, harvest time, fall time. He's teaching you the terminology used by that group of people. And so you know that he knows and he's using the specialist language, right? And if you go out and you look at something where somebody says, yeah, I've had 4 children and all of them were during cherry time, you go like, that's right. That's how they do it. So you've learned some of the language. He's both shared it with you, but also he's talking the talk. He's familiar with how this issue is addressed. Moving on here, pathos. He keeps it very, very minimal. He was a slave. I'm sure he saw untold horrors, but he is careful not to lose his audience. He's got Northerners who want to support his cause, who want to learn more, but they may have never seen a slave. They have never been to a plantation. They've never seen it in real life. And if he overdoes it by telling true stories that are truly disturbing, he's probably going to lose his audience, right? They're going to either be too upset to keep listening, especially during that era. If you've got a bunch of ladies over at tea time and you're the public speaker trying to get them to raise awareness for what's happening in the South, he's got to be very careful not to like scare the crap out of those little old ladies. So it's very pulled back. It's very restrained. It's a tiny sprinkling of pathos, but it's enough emotion for us to engage with it, right? The want of information concerning my own birthday, a source of unhappiness, understatement of the century, right? So not allowed. I mean, that could be just like a hint at violence perhaps, but he keeps it so restrained. Improper, impertinent. He makes that estimation that he's 27 or 28. And he knows this because he heard my master say sometime during 1835 that he was about 17 years old. So we're getting that snippet of like a real life story without the vivid, perhaps disturbing details. And he does an incredible job of establishing all that ethos and giving us a little bit of the personal stories. And it's building that engagement. It's building that pathos through emotion. All right. Quickly, we're just going to look at Dear City Council. I'm ready to request an installation of a speed bump on the street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Cars drive too fast through that neighborhood. It's only a matter of time before someone's kid or pet gets hurt. You'll poke your eye out. Who is this person? I don't know. Like, prank caller. Okay, so we've got a lot of pathos because we brought the children and the puppies into it. Like, whoa, dude. Also, like, who are you to be like, thanks? Are you a city road engineer? Like, bye. Don't tell us our business. Next. Not an effective letter to city council. Here, obviously a longer one, but longer does not always mean better. What does he do? As a longtime resident of Wiltshire. Okay, so he's establishing, like, I live here, I see stuff. Then closure of Concord, rerouting traffic along Main. All right, he's given us facts. You can verify those. Now it's like, okay, he's paying attention. That stuff helps establish your ethos, that you're well-read, well-informed on the topic. He's thrown it down on, like, he lives on main streets, eyewitness accounts, again, experience, knowledge that adds to the ethos. He keeps the pathos moment about kids and puppies in there, but he keeps it restrained. The 5 near misses with pets and 1 instance of a child narrowly avoiding being hit by a car. Wow, okay, so this is a serious threat, and those are very emotionally engaging problems. And then he offers us a solution that seems rather reasonable. So now all of a sudden he's built all that ethos for like more than half of this little paragraph, thrown a sprinkle of pathos in there, but part of his, like, I'm just giving you the facts, ma'am. This is a far more effective letter to get people to listen when you're communicating. Because we know that you know what you're talking about because you've shown us that at the very beginning. You've sprinkled in a little bit of a reason why it can, like, emotionally engage us. All right, so in general, ethos. Establish it early, establish it often. Oftentimes, even just using the technical terminology, using your citations and your data and your scholars very well will show that you're good at this research business and you know what you're talking about. Pathos, it is a strong spice. So please don't ruin the whole stew with too much of it being shaken in. So remember that those two work in harmony with one another. We will certainly talk a lot more about these later, but that is your sort of intro/review to how ethos and pathos help people listen when you're trying to communicate.